Thank you so much for having me here today. I feel like as everyone has taken their shoes off, we should probably give you a bit of an experience, but first of all, lock the doors as to why you've taken them off. Today came about as a result of a video that I'd posted on LinkedIn called Lessons from a Pink Hat. Who's seen that video? Yeah, so some of you, but not everyone. So the majority of you'd have no idea what's coming. Basically, I'd gone into the warehouse with my children and I'd seen this really cool pink hat. There was a whole row of them. And the hats had embroidered on them, believing in yourself. And what I loved about that was that when you can just be you and believe in yourself, you can come from this beautiful place of authenticity. And it was only about a week prior to that I'd learned how to do the floss dance. And in the warehouse this day, when I'd seen the pink hat, and I was like, oh my God, film me with the pink hat doing the floss dance. So I put on this pink hat that says believing in yourself and start to do the floss dance. And Jordan and Travis, they're like, Mom, no. I'm like, yes. And they're like, no. And they quickly scarper to the other side of the warehouse, like, I don't know her. Like, that's not my mother. And so we are going to do it. I was going to do it a little bit later, but since we've kind of got our shoes off ready, let's stand up. The best way I found was doing it in slow motion first. So your hip goes out and your hands go out like that, and you pull back and then forward and then back and then forward, and then you just kind of swing over to the other side and back. And then you just have this, it's just like, then you just keep moving. Look, you got some experts in the room. We can all sit down now. One of the reasons why I decided to do that in the warehouse, and I kind of did it in a few other places, was I kind of had this bit of a philosophy around feeling comfortable in the uncomfortable, because it helps us to be able to courageously leap. But that video, along with 5 others, came about as a result of a couple of things happening last year in my life in November. One was work-related. We have a new GM in NZM manufacturing, and all of our work was put on hold, and work that I absolutely love, working with the engineering teams on some really cool pieces of work around process improvement. At that time, I needed to understand, we've got all these different learning teams, who does what's the budget, what's the return on investment, and fair enough, he's constantly being driven by cost of conversion, and in our current state and getting back to basics, we need to understand what's adding value. And then that weekend, on the Sunday, a girlfriend of mine that I've worked in social services with and done training programs to youth around neurolinguistics, she said, would you like to come and have a look at one of the youth leadership programs that we're doing? So she owns a company called Forward Focus, and they do development programs for the prisons, for what we call youth at risk, which I would say that it's youth at the edge of their potential. And I remember turning up this day at the workshop, and they were all sitting in a half circle, and Karen had said, could everybody please introduce yourself and talk about one thing that you're grateful for today? And it was going around, and it came to this beautiful young girl who would have been about 16, and she said, I'm really grateful that I got to have breakfast this morning because I haven't eaten for the last 3 days. There hasn't been any food in the house. And it kept going around, and it eventually came to this young lad that was sitting not far from me, who had a hoodie and a cap and a scarf over here and dark glasses, and his hands were in his pocket. He introduced himself, and Karen said, could you please share something that you're grateful about? And kind of shrugged his shoulders. And she said, if there was something that you could share, what might it be? And he said, well, thanks so much for picking me up, because my dad just started drinking again this morning. So this was 9 o'clock in the morning. We're talking about youth that have been through the system. They may have had a drug overdose. They may have been put into foster care. So quite, I kind of had this moment of sitting there going, oh my God, do I have any right to be in this room? Just growing up in completely different environments and circumstances to what I had in my life. But as we went through the rest of the session and we kind of went into different activities and people were sharing and I got to share as well, I realised that no matter what our circumstances, no matter where we've come from, no matter the role that we have, our title, we all have had the same feelings of fear, of doubt, feeling uncertainty, of pain, but we've also felt joy and excitement and compassion and creativity and courage. Who here in this room too has also felt pain, fear, but you've also felt joy and compassion and courage? So it's those molecules that kind of tie us together as human beings. That night, I remember sitting down with Jordan and Travis, and we were talking about our day. Travis was talking about motocross, and we've got inter-school motocross that's coming up, and it kind of come round to my daughter, and my daughter does show jumping, and she'd seen on Instagram this picture of a friend that her parents have just bought this beautiful big horse truck. And, oh my God, Mum, it's got a kitchen and you can sleep in it and it houses 4 horses. And they've just built this beautiful arena, and all of a sudden it started going into, I wish we... Now, we've got a horse float, it takes 2 horses, and we've got a couple of paddocks, but we don't have a big flash arena. But it was really interesting. Isn't it true that in life everything is in comparison to? And all of a sudden she's going, but compared to what we have and they have, she's starting to see this comparison of lack and getting into this, I wish. So you can imagine when it came to my sharing, and I'm like, well, today I was with a group of young youth, and there's this beautiful young girl that was in there, and she was talking about how she was just so grateful that she got to have breakfast because there'd been no food in the house for the last 3 days. And all of a sudden, the whole gap of lack shifted into this gap of abundance, where my daughter realized how lucky, in fact, she is. What's really interesting is when we bring the identity into that comparison frame, and I put a pause in between the I and the identity, because usually everything that we say after the word I makes up the belief about who we believe we are and who we believe we are not. A couple of weeks ago, I was down in Hawera for a wedding, so I decided to work out a Whareroa site for the Friday, and I caught up with one of our young apprentices, and he was talking about some of the things that he was interested in, and there was a role that had come up that he was quite keen on. And I was like, oh, have you applied for it? And he was like, oh, no, I'm not good enough. I'm like, oh, according to what? Like in comparison to what? Oh, well, there's been guys that have been here for years and they're way better and they've got a lot more experience. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, the majority of people you talk to in Fonterra, particularly New Zealand manufacturing, they've been here for like average of 20 years, and long gone the times of you do your time and then you get promoted. So we kind of ticked that one off. Okay, what's your next limiting belief? And we went through all of the limiting beliefs. And then I said to him, I guess, you could apply for the role, and one or two things will happen. You either won't get the role, like the other 20, 30 that apply for it, and you'll feel pretty stink, you'll feel rejection, you'll feel disappointment, or you will get it. That'll be great, that'll be exciting, wouldn't it? Or you could not apply for the role, and then you won't get it. Like, that's the only option. But what you do have to do is you will have to show up. You will have to put yourself on the line, and you will have to open yourself up and be willing to experience rejection. What I find fascinating is, where does this whole identity thing come from? Like when you wake up in the morning, how do you know to be you? When you get out of bed, how do you know to step into the identity of you? How do you know to put on the clothes that say, this is who I am and this is who I am not? So I'd like to invite you to turn around and have a discussion with the person next to you, and those on the line as well. Just have a discussion with the person next to you around, when you wake up in the morning, how do you know to be you? If I think back 2 years ago, we were challenged if we weren't on a plane flying somewhere in a room training, whereas now, it's very much changed with digital technology. We're probably, questioned around, well, could that be put in an e-learning or a video? But I know there's been times when I've woken up in a hotel And in that split second, I've kind of gone, oh my God, where am I? And even had a moment of, who am I? Everything that we have learned up to this point in time tends to make up that identity of who we are. One of the biases that I'd like to talk about is negativity bias. And the negativity bias states that we can have two extremes of the same intensity, but we will tend as human beings to focus on the one that is the most negative. So if you can imagine we can imagine like in this room, we have 60 people in the room. 50 are really excited and they're happy and they're full of energy, but 10, they are pissed off. They are angry. They look like their faces are about to explode with fire. Where are we going to put our attention? Yeah, over here. Oh, it's like, what's going on? Oh my God, are we safe here with those people? And that takes us right back to the caveman days, where we would be out and we are hunting for that deer. Here's the opportunity. And we're focused, and that's where we're going. But then out of the corner of our eye is the saber-toothed tiger. And that saber-toothed tiger is making its way towards us. There'll be more opportunities that come along, but we will run from the threat so that we can survive. And when we think about our zone of comfort, here we are safe. If we step outside of here, it's unsafe. When we come back in here, it's what we know. Out there is the unknown. In here, we are certain. Out there is uncertainty. When we think back, to that old part of ourselves, the caveman days, the brain then only had the reptilian part, which is the old part of the brain, the fight-flight. But today we're evolved, and we've got this beautiful prefrontal cortex that allows us to make decisions and dream about the future and come up with new insights. We'll have some of these old programs that will run unconsciously, and if that takes over, then we release cortisol, our body gets in, or additional cortisol, our body gets into a stress state, the blood goes out here, we're ready to fight, and we miss out on the opportunity to have those new insights and to step into our dreams and our desires. So back to, when you wake up in the morning and who do you know who you are? Sometimes, we might still have that 6-year-old or that 8-year-old or the 10-year-old or 11-year-old running our lives today from patterns, that have happened and emotions that we attach to that. And life is just life until we attach meaning to it. Sometimes those meanings are outdated and we need to change them. I remember when I was about 10, and Mum and Dad were dairy farmers, so we were always moving. They were shear milkers. And I remember moving from a tiny little country school of about 40 children into intermediate that had over 300. And I can remember, in the first week of school, you get invited to go into different groups and you get assessed. And for PE, there was the team A, B, and C. And A were the ones that were really good at PE, really good at physical education, loved it. C were the ones that weren't so good or weren't that interested in it. And B was, kind of middle range. And I remember choosing B, but about 15 minutes later going, oh my God, I want to actually be an A. And I remember going up to the teacher and saying, I want to change. I want to go into team A. And was told, no, you've made your decision. You cannot change. You have to stay in B. And I was gutted. That had such an impact on my life. Thankfully, the interpretation that I made from that was, as I went through life, tell me I can't, I'll show you I can. But that also had a negative effect on it as well, because I remember when I was in my late 20s, I was the Auckland transport manager for a distribution company, looked after the National Line Haul, and it also started to create this perfectionist in me as well. And I was getting to the point of burnout. And so not just in work, I did yacht racing, netball, I was on lots of different networking groups and events and forums. And I can remember a girlfriend that I was racing with, she phoned me up and she said, my dad's going to sail a yacht back from Fiji. It's in 7 days. One of the guys that was coming with us can't make it. Can you make it? And I can remember thinking, yeah, I need to stop and I need to go have some time out. And oh my God, who wouldn't want to sail a yacht back from Fiji? So I remember going to my boss, who was the owner of the company, and not asking, but saying, I'm leaving in 7 days and I'm going to be sailing a yacht back from Fiji. And it was 11 days. On the 2 days, 2 of those days, as we were going out and as we were coming into New Zealand, you could actually see land. But 9 of those days, you just saw the water and the sky connecting together, and that was it. It was so vast. And my shifts on the helm were from 12 to 1 in the afternoon, and then from midnight to 1 in the morning. And, from midnight to 1, I think that was probably the best leadership program that I had ever had, because you're standing there in the dark, the waves are crashing over you, you're harnessed in, you can't see anything, you're just following the GPS, and it's just like this dong, and the waves crash over, and dong, and the waves crash over. And I had this real moment of reflection, and the word delegation came into my mind, which I wasn't very good at delegating go, but things changed when I got back and I started to delegate and let go. And that was scary for me, because it meant that I had to let go. It meant that I had to actually step to the edge of my comfort zone. So when we think about courageous leaping, and when we come to that edge of the comfort zone, it's like a bird that's going to soar for the first time. It has the excitement of soaring, but the fear also of falling. And when we go to step out and try something new, there will be that part of us from the past that will try and hold us back. And sometimes that shows up, in that inner critic, when you go to step forward and that little voice says, oh my God, who do you think you are? And you step forward again and it goes, don't you remember last time you failed? Or if you've never done it before, oh my goodness, like seriously, you've never tried this before. There'll be so many other people that are better than you. Like, don't go there. And you take another step forward. And that little voice is like, but you could look like an idiot if you fail and you don't succeed. So we get brought back into our zone of comfort. A lot of the personal development programs will tell you to try and suppress, that inner critic. But I think it's just there to try and keep us safe. If we understand our past, it's there to try and keep us safe. So the inner coach needs to bring its voice up. And that's where the inner coach can talk back and go, you know what, thanks. Really appreciate you looking out for me. But I'm going to try this anyway because I feel truly inspired about this. And so this is kind of the brain in the past, but when we want to move forward and courageously leap, it comes from a place inside. It comes from a deep desire. Some people might call it, your soul calling, something inside your heart space. But there's always something that we want to expand into. It's really interesting when somebody says to you, what's your purpose and what's your passion? Can you say it straight off, like what it is? Sometimes it's hard to really find that and draw it out. But when you start to think about what you're curious about, the story that you want to tell the world, a problem that you might want to solve in the world, what is it that you research all the time? What is it that you find fascinating and interesting? And what we're going to do is we're going to create, I'm going to stop talking, and we're going to create some courageous leaping statements. And if we want to chunk down from that big, true, deep, inspired life, I want to change my life, more to, if we think about our wheel of life, on our wheel of life, we have health, we have career, we have relationships, love relationships, social relationships, we have family, we have finances. What might be something that you've been thinking about that you would love to leap and step into, but you've been holding yourself back? In career, it might be something like, I want to go onto a board or a governance group. Or it might be that you have an idea, but you just haven't brought that up because you've kind of thought, oh, no, what if somebody else has got a better idea? Or don't have the confidence to stand up in front of your team. In health, it might be something as crazy as I want to run a quarter marathon. Or actually, I want to start eating raw. I want to cut some of the sugar out of my diet. And I've always been wanting to start that garden, but I never have. It might be something in a relationship, something that you've been wanting to say to your partner, that if you know that if you say it, it's going to make a difference. But when you go to say it, you can start to emotions arise, and then you just pull yourself back to that safe zone. So I'd like to invite you, and we're going to put some music on, and we're going to stand up, because I feel it getting warm in here, and we're going to walk around to the music. When we start moving, we start accessing from our muscle memory, and we start to get the creative juices flowing. And I'd just like to invite you to create your courageous leaping statement. I would like to courageously leap into. And then, and this is really important to me because there needs to be a why it's important. There needs to be a why attached to it. If you can't come on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being really important, if you're not around a 7, it's not going to be important enough for you to take action. So I would like to courageously leap into, and this is really important to me because. So we'll play some music and get everybody up and start moving. And is everybody on the line good with that? And a bit of I'm going to courageously leap into. That's where I should take my shoes off. And so when you're ready, just finding your seat again. Just very quickly now, turn to the person next to you and say to that person that I make a commitment to myself. So if you want to share your courageously leap, I would like to courageously leap into, and this is why it's important to me, share that. If it's something that's quite personal, then just say, I'd like to courageously leap into something that's quite personal to me, and this is important to me because. But just acknowledge to that person that, you know what, this is important and I am going to make a commitment to myself to bring this into my reality. So just quickly, while it's right there, to the person next to you. And online as well, guys. So, we're going to eventually run out of time, but 4 things that I want to talk about that can help us to change those patterns and really support us to move forward and step in to our courageous leaping statements. And one is feeling comfortable in the uncomfortable. So going out and doing things that make you feel uncomfortable. I used to be scared of heights. Well, not scared, but uncomfortable. So I decided that I was going to start rock climbing. And actually, I didn't really have much choice in it. My children in primary school wanted me to go with them during school day. And, you know, they were just going up and like, come on, Mum. And so I was like, okay. When you're doing something that feels uncomfortable, start to notice your body. Notice where your breathing is, how short it is, how your heart's beating or not beating, the emotions that you feel through your body. When you begin to understand your body, you then know how to breathe and use that for energy to support you. About a year ago, a friend of mine was coming over from England, and I booked us in to do the walk around the edge of the tower. Has anyone done that? On Sky City, walk around the edge? Oh my God, it's amazing. You go right out to the top, you go out onto the edge, you put on a harness, and I thought I was being so cool walking around the edge until the guy goes, stand on the edge. I remember looking down and going, oh my God, all the cars just look like little matchboxes. But you know, before when I was saying like a bird that goes to fly for the first time, the excitement of soaring, the fear of falling, he was then like, lean out. And I had a whole new level of fear that boiled up inside of me. But I did it. So do things where you start to feel comfortable in the uncomfortable, because then you start to expand your zone of comfort. It's on the edge where we feel chaos and order that we learn and that we grow, and that we're able to step into the best version at that next level of who we want to become. The other is disrupt your pattern. How many people wake up in the morning, brush their teeth with the same hand, drive the same way to work if you drive? You go to your favourite coffee shop, you sit in the same place with the seats available, with the same people. Disrupt your pattern. I encourage you to brush your teeth. If you brush them with your right hand, brush them with the left hand. It's very weird, but by the end of the week, it becomes normal and you've broken that pattern. Celebrate yourself. I don't think we do that enough. When I talk about breaking the pattern, I think one of the daily routines and patterns that we should keep is every morning when you wake up, celebrate yourself. Bring some truisms into it. You know, like say to yourself, wow, just as the sun has risen, because that's true. So if we say something true, whatever we say straight after that, the brain believes it. Just as the sun has risen today, I am amazing. I know that I can step into the best version of myself today. I know that opportunities are going to show up. I breathe a smile into my heart. I feel compassion, self-compassion for myself. Because when we talked about the inner critic, that's the voice of self-doubt that will sabotage us. But the inner coach is self-compassion that will encourage us. Develop more of that voice. I am becoming the kind of person that can. And the other thing is you've already made a decision and a commitment. That's nothing if we don't act. What are your actions? What are your actions, your next things that you can do? So you've come up with this courageous, leaping statement. What's something that you can do when you walk out the door today? In the next hour, sometimes we think, gosh, there's these big things, the big actions we have to do. What's one little thing that you could do today? What's another thing you could do next week? What's another thing you could do the week after? 15 every day, just 15 minutes. Be the kind of person that you don't say, I wish I had done that. But oh my God, I'm so glad I did that. One last thing I'm going to say, and then we'll do some flossing so you've got energy walking out of this room. I truly believe that we have this incredible greatness. And when you step to the edge of that comfort zone and you courageously leap into the version, the expansion of what you can become, when you create that reality and you expand it out, you contribute not only to yourself, but to your family, to your colleagues, to your company that you're connected in with. You contribute to humanity. And we truly make a difference to our planet. We have some incredible women in Fonterra. So I wish you all the very best. And I look forward to hearing about some of the courageous leaping stories coming to life and coming into reality. So let's finish off with some flossing. Okay, we all know how to do this now. There we go.
I just wanted to take a few minutes to thank everybody online for joining us today. Hopefully that worked as an online session for you, but also to thank the fabulous Theresa. We're really delighted to have found you. Isn't it amazing how many incredible women we have across Fonterra and we don't know each other? How many hidden gems we've got across the organisation. So, you know, how do we leap out and connect with more amazing women and share that goodness and that pure magic that comes from being a woman? So go out and do some magic. Thank you very, very much for today. And thanks, Theresa. That was awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Thank you.